Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 5:06 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. You can join us today at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. President Trump is trying to bring to a close a number of conflicts, bloody, deadly conflicts all across the planet, including between Russia and Ukraine. Millions of casualties there. And the president says that he's seen footage that is just very haunting, and he just thinks that this bloodshed needs to stop. He had conversations this morning, he said over an hour, with Vladimir Putin of Russia. He also talked to Vladimir Zelensky as well. Says that both men would like to figure out a way to get to a peace. A big piece of the news cycle this week is that President Trump once again successfully got an American hostage released out of a Russian labor camp, out of a Russian prison. That's Mark Fogel. He's an American school teacher who was arrested by the Russians. He had traveled to the country with some small amount of the wacky tobacco, and he was taken into custody as a result of that. But now he's finally home, and here is his reaction. He got to spend the night last night in the Lincoln bedroom at the White House.
I feel like the luckiest man on earth right now. And I want you to know that I am not a hero in this at all. And President Trump is a hero. These men that came from the diplomatic service are heroes.
The Trump administration is in the midst of all of these conversations trying to pursue an end to that war. Like I mentioned, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth overseas speaking to European countries today, saying that we have to be very realistic about what the world looks like going forward.
A durable peace for Ukraine must include robust security guarantees to ensure that the war will not begin again. This must not be Minsk 3.0. That said, the United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement. Instead, any security guarantee must be backed by capable European and non-European troops.
Some of the media reaction to that today suggesting, why are they taking bargaining chips off the table? Well, it could be that there's a deal further along than maybe any of us realized. Joining us now, Rebekah Koffler, a former Defense Intelligence Agency officer and the author of Putin's Playbook, Russia's Secret Plan to Defeat America. Rebekah, good to have you back with us.
Thank you.
What do you believe is going on?
What's going on is President Trump is aiming to fulfill his campaign promise to end this bloody war and not to get the United States entangled in any more endless foreign wars. And when it comes to Russian President Putin, he wants to end this war as well, but only on Russia's terms, on Putin's terms, which are unacceptable to Washington. They have been unacceptable because to accept Putin's terms would make us look like total idiots, because here's the situation that Trump inherited from the Washington establishment, which has pursued for a quarter of a century the most ridiculous Russia policy by trying to democratize the countries that belong to Russia's perceived strategic security perimeter. You know, Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia, just like we have the Monroe Doctrine, Putin has his own, right? And so the situation that we are in, the United States, is we spent $200 billion in cash and in weapon systems, out of which only about $71 billion, according to Zelensky, made it to Ukraine. So who knows what the rest of the U.S. taxpayers' money went.
Of course.
We have depleted our own weapons arsenal to dangerous levels when it comes to specific weapon systems. And 1 million of the, between the Russians and Ukrainians are dead, 50% of Ukrainian infrastructure destroyed. And right now, Ukraine is going to get a worse deal than it would have had that war never been started. That the Washington establishment, the neocons, and all of those, people, I basically, I call it professional professional malpractice.
Yes.
Whoever got us in this situation, right? And that's what's going on. It's going to be a hard one. That President Trump has done tremendous job, and his team getting Mark Fogel out. But it is in no way an indicator that the negotiations to settle the Ukraine conflict are going to be easy. They're going to be super hard. Putin is going to play a very, very hard ball because he believes he's in excellent position, and he believes that Trump wants peace in Ukraine bad, more so than Putin himself does.
But the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, you know, you and I both know he's not just freelancing when he goes out there and he says that no, Ukraine is not going to join NATO. And by the way, it's foolish to think, he said this today too, I didn't play the audio, but it's foolish to think that you're going to somehow restore Ukraine's boundaries to the 2014 levels. He said that's not happening. And so I don't think the Secretary of Defense comes out and just says that unless there's some bigger conversation happening behind the scenes. Am I wrong?
I think you're absolutely correct. We are right now in the era of common sense, and it applies to Trump's military strategy and all other kinds of strategies, domestic policy, you name it, right? So, but what they inherited is the wishful thinking type of the results of the wishful thinking policy. No, Ukraine is not going to become part of NATO, right? So Hegseth finally said the common sense, the reasonable thing. But the question is then, why did we do it in the first place? Why did we have to invest all of this money that we could have invested in our own country? And why is Ukraine now destroyed? So basically, Biden and his incompetent, advisors have blood, Ukrainian blood on their hands by pushing Ukraine into NATO. And effectively, they used Ukrainians as a human shield to protect the Europeans who did not want to pay for their own security.
Well, and also,
right? They didn't.
And also, to what extent were they merely protecting the meddlesome American foreign policy establishment? So if you go back to 2014, I don't know if you and I have talked about this, but I'm curious about your thoughts about the role that the American government pushed in the Maidan Revolution in 2014, which changed the government of Ukraine from one that was obviously much closer to Russia to one that was designed to be aligned with the United States. To what extent did that serve as a predicate to so much of the chaos we're seeing now?
It's 100% the predicate. Victoria Nuland, the queen of the color revolutions, is the primary culprit that dragged us into this proxy war with Russia that was from the very start unwinnable for Ukraine. And I've been saying it for the past 3 years, and at the risk of being no longer invited to all the legacy media, right? Because people just didn't want to hear the truth. Remember all these, stupid little blue and yellow Ukrainian flags, and people just kept saying how Ukraine is going to win. Well, there's just another level of complete misunderstanding of the mismatch between the combat potential, right, of Russia and Ukraine is just so drastic.
And it's possible
the media people.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just think it's one thing to remember.
Not understanding this, but
not
the Pentagon. The Pentagon. Somebody must be fired for wasting, for the fraud of abuse of our money, $200 billion, and somebody should be fired for Ukraine being destroyed, for throwing Ukraine in Putin's meat grinder.
Yeah. So this is my point is that I think it's both entirely appropriate to condemn Putin for invading Ukraine and simultaneously condemn the American foreign policy establishment for destabilizing the region in the first place. And talk about what an unwise and deadly decision. How much human catastrophe has occurred in that region? We get all sorts of numbers. We over 1 million casualties. That typically means killed and wounded. How do you assess it, Rebekah Koffler?
So I agree that the casualties probably are on the order of more than 1 million, right? And that includes both dead and gravely, gravely wounded. Those are people who will no longer join the labor pool, and they're going to be a massive drain on the healthcare system, right? But the point is this: so it's extremely difficult to nail down with any degree of accuracy the exact casualties, because they just don't do, neither Russia nor Ukraine do the accurate type of record keeping that we do, and also they try to conceal both sides. But regardless,
yes.
1 million is plenty. These are European, age, young males, child-producing males who are out, who are dead, and 50% of Ukrainian infrastructure is destroyed, and that is according to the United Nations itself. And so what we're in right now, because the BlackRock and all of these other, vultures are now hungry to rebuild Ukraine, and that's again some of it is going to come at the U.S. taxpayers' expense.
Mm-hmm.
Because and Trump, hopefully he's going to compel the Europeans to take on this responsibility and stop just to remind you, I personally briefed NATO in Brussels in September 2013, just a few months in the run-up to Putin's invasion of Crimea, and at the classified level, it explained very, very clearly what Putin's goals were, his ambitions, the warfighting strategy that I described later in my book at the unclassified level called Putin's Playbook. And yet nobody wanted to lift a finger, because guess what? They preferred to drink their cappuccinos and spend 3 months vacationing on Rivieras than contributing 5%, 5% of their GDP to defense, which is what Trump insists on right now. Justifiably so, because they cannot take us for suckers anymore. I mean, why are we paying for everyone's security? Like, we don't have 3 months vacation.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. So what does the deal in the end potentially look like? I saw earlier this week that Vladimir Zelensky is indicating that he's willing to do a land swap with Russia. It would be foolish to read into that he means he's giving up Ukrainian territory. What he means by that is that he's ready to swap some of the land that Ukraine currently dominates in the Kursk region of Russia, and saying, hey, we'll give you that control of that back. But Russia has seized big portions of eastern Ukraine. What does a final deal look like in your view?
The final deal is definitely not going to favor Ukraine. I mean, Zelensky is irrelevant at this point. He's just a clown, because the Russians are not going to negotiate with him. He's illegitimate. His presidential term expired several months ago. Putin himself said, and you have to be able to read between the lines. When Putin says something, you cannot take it at face value, right? So that's why you need to apply intelligence analysis, tradecraft to really understand what he says. Putin said, we will negotiate with anyone who has the legitimate and legal right to negotiate, and that is not Zelensky. So the Russians are going to insist on the elections being held, which they're going to try to influence. Right. So Putin is trying to score some brownie points with Trump, right? He's getting tremendous propaganda out of it. The Russian media is just exploding with praising Russian President Putin and how he is repairing the relations with President Trump. Putin, all of a sudden, he's no longer the killer and the brutal dictator. He's a statesman who has a soul, and he feels bad for Mark Fogel. This is what's going on right now. But he's going to drag all of this in order to get exactly the deal that he wants. And he believes that he's in excellent position because he beefed up his armed forces to the maximum allowable, even beyond the maximum allowable by the Constitution, 1.3 million, and his military industrial complex is working 24/7 in 3 shifts because Putin transitioned it on the wartime shooting. So he could go on for years, right? But he knows that the hot button for President Trump and his team is to end this war quickly. President Trump wanted to end it in 24 hours, okay? It ain't going to happen. And so right now, again, Trump is no rookie either. He's a talented negotiator, but he's not a magician. He inherited an awful, terrible situation with the previous, like I said, incompetent people. And I'm glad that he revoked his their security clearances, Jake Sullivan, Joe Biden, because these people, just like an attorney, must lose. Sometimes attorneys lose their licenses to practice. Doctors do for professional malpractice.
Yes.
I believe that entire team, both Biden and beginning with the Bushes, right? Because who pushed Ukraine into all of this? Who wanted to democratize? And who, like even Condi Rice kept saying, oh, Putin is a rash, he's delusional. I mean, who is delusional here? Like, who does not understand what a Monroe Doctrine is, right? So you have to like be sensible about things. And finally, we have a sensible commander-in-chief, but he is going to have to deal with the situation that he inherited from the idiots who were in charge of foreign policy, of U.S. foreign policy.
Yeah, he's got to try to do something big here with a bad hand. He wants to pull an inside straight. We'll see if he can do it. Rebekah Koffler, thank you very much. Good to talk to you today. Hey, good afternoon to you. It's now 5:35. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. We've got quite a bit going on today. The President of the United States conducting a press conference of his own from the White House. And then the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, just stepped out. Take a listen. This is some of Pam Bondi's press conference today.
Being patient with us with the delay. We're here today because we have filed charges against the state of New York. We have filed charges against Kathy Hochul. We have filed charges against Letitia James and Mark Schroeder, who is with DMV. This is a new DOJ, and we are taking steps to protect Americans, American citizens, and angel moms, like the mom standing right behind me, who you're going to hear from in a moment.
Angel moms.
New York
that would be mothers who have lost their children to the attacks by illegal aliens.
Chosen to prioritize illegal aliens over American citizens. It stops today. As you know, we sued Illinois, and New York didn't listen. So now you're next. Millions of illegal aliens with violent records have flooded into our communities, bringing violence and deadly drugs with them. With me today, I'm so proud to be joined by Tammy Nobles. Tammy is an angel mom. Her beautiful daughter, Kayla Hamilton, was murdered by an MS-13 member in 2022. Kayla had just turned 20 years old.
We've had Tammy Nobles on our program to discuss this awful story.
She was raped and murdered by someone who should not have been in our country. Yet, he was released, flown to Maryland, where he committed this violent murder. I just want you to hear from, Tammy. Tammy represents not only herself and her family, but all of the great angel moms around this country who have suffered because of what the Biden administration did, and it is over.
Wow. This is a new Justice Department, isn't it?
Thank you for having me here today and being able to share Kayla's story. Her murderer was able to come across the border knowing that he was flagged as an MS-13 gang member, and he had a criminal record in 2020 in El Salvador for illicit gang activity. He came over as an unoccupied alien child, saying that he was afraid of gang activity in his country. Health and Human Services called him a nice boy, and he showed age-appropriate behavior. That fell so wrong when he murdered my daughter. He ended up in Maryland, where he was able to rent a room in the same mobile home as her. We thought it was a legit company that were renting out these rooms, but it turned out that it was another illegal immigrant who owned these mobile homes. And he knew Walter from El Salvador. He knew him and allowed him to rent a room with my child. Kayla just turned 20 years old 3 days before she was murdered. Her murderer was only living there for 5 days before he viciously strangled her, raped her, and left her on the floor like trash and robbed her of $6. I have been sharing her story for over 2.5 years to bring change, because this should have not have ever happened to Kayla, and it shouldn't be happening to other families being hurt by the border. Homeland Security did not do their jobs. They did not check his background. You know, they did say that he was processed. So if they processed him, they knew that he was a gang member and still allowed him here. Health and Human Services did not verify the sponsor and allowed him to go with a sponsor that they don't even know if it was his cousin or his aunt. And he was able to leave the sponsor's house to go live wherever he wanted. And I am going to continue sharing Kayla's story to help save others and to bring awareness of what was happening under the Biden-Harris administration. And I'm so thankful for Pam having me here today. And I'm so thankful for the opportunities I got from Trump and any other platform, you know, people who allowed me to share her story.
Yeah.
Because this is going to end. No
Tammy
other
Noble's
parents should suffer
been a great fighter
by having their child murdered by somebody that shouldn't be here. And I'm going to continue, you know, sharing it, and for Kayla, you know, and also for others. Thank you.
And it's my understanding that he also admitted to other murders, correct? Multiple murders.
He wrote a letter, and it was intercepted in jail, that he committed 4 murders and 2 rapes.
And that's who we were letting walk into our country. And that's why President Trump has directed this to stop. And if you don't comply with federal law, we will hold you accountable. We did it to Illinois, strike 1. Strike 2 is New York. And if you are a state not complying with federal law, you're next. Get ready. And the great men and women of law enforcement are standing behind me today. We have FBI, DEA, ATF agents. They put their lives on the line every single day to protect us. And what New York has, they have green light laws, meaning they're giving a green light to any illegal alien in New York, where law enforcement officers cannot check their identity if they pull them over. Law enforcement officers do not have access to their background. And if these great men and women pull over someone and don't have access to their background, they have no idea who they're dealing with. And it puts their lives on the line every single day. Violent criminals, gang members, drug traffickers, human smugglers will no longer terrorize the American people. And that is why we are here today. You will be held accountable if you do not follow federal law. It's over, it ends, and we're coming after you. Questions?
That's Pam Bondi. All right, so we're in the question phase now. So that's the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, today announcing charges against the state of New York, against Letitia James, against Kathy Hochul, saying that the state of New York has been completely out of control in accommodating illegal aliens at the expense of American citizens. And so now, after having gone after Illinois, additionally now going after New York, and saying that every other jurisdiction in the country that would hurt Americans in this way needs to be on notice. This is the Q&A phase. Let's see how people handle it.
David Spot with Fox News. Madam Attorney General, thank you and welcome to the Justice Department.
Thank you.
I have a quick on-topic and a quick off-topic question. On topic, in your executive order or in your orders on the first day you were here, you talked about working with the Justice Department, or these sanctuary cities, as you say, will be punished. Today you're putting people on notice. Right now, we're just lawsuits. Is this going to go further? What kind of punishment are we talking about? Is there any grounds to charge individuals, charge politicians? How far is this going to go?
Well, we're going to see what they do next, David. We have sued them all. We've personally sued the governor, the attorney general, Letitia James, and Mark Schroeder with DMV because he has the green light laws. So what they have to do, they have to start complying with federal law. If they don't, we're going to appeal it, and we will win. They have to comply with federal law. Did you have a second question?
I did have a second off topic.
I mean, think about what the Justice Department did under Biden. The Justice Department under Biden would bring pressure to bear on people who didn't vote for Biden. They would use the resources of the Justice Department to hurt Catholics who were praying outside of abortion mills, or to go after January 6 grandmas, or to try and crush Donald Trump to prevent him from ever coming back to the White House again. That's the way the Justice Department was used. And here you have the new Attorney General suing the state of New York, suing Kathy Hochul, suing all of these officials for prioritizing illegal aliens over American citizens. They're bringing the weight of the Justice Department down on them in service of the American citizen, not at the expense of the American citizen. It's a total sea change.
A question in this regard to the judiciary. Today, Elon Musk, who has enormous influence in the Trump administration, posted on X, quote, "There needs to be an immediate wave of judicial impeachments, not just one." As the Attorney General of the United States, how do you respond to that? Shouldn't the process work out in the courts before we talk about judicial impeachments? I mean, these are just TROs now at this time. Shouldn't these just play out?
Yeah, I haven't seen Elon Musk tweet. He is a friend of mine. He is a great man. I think he's very frustrated with what's happening.
Can I just roll out the I haven't seen the tweet start to any answer ever? No more of those. Like, just straight up, full-throated, these judges are out of control. You don't need to see the tweet. He just read you the tweet. It's a weird, that's a member of Congress thing. Republicans in Congress. I didn't see what Trump posted on Truth Social. Stop being such a coward. Just confront it head on.
In our federal government, you know, at USAID alone, they're giving out billions of dollars that should not be distributed. We're going to back him up. You know, we work our whole lives in this country, and we all pay taxes in this country. Yeah. And for people to find out that $2 million is going to Guatemala for sex changes is outrageous.
That's it, right there.
And we're going to back up Elon Musk every way we can. That includes lawsuits against these people who are doing that, and we will be successful.
Perfect.
Concerns about judicial impeachments?
That's not going to happen now. We're going to look at everything. We're going to follow the law right now. We're going to follow the process. These are federal judges with lifetime appointments, but they will be struck down ultimately by the Supreme Court of the United States if the appellate courts don't follow the law.
So this is President Trump's remarks, by the way. Last night, he said the same thing. He said, look, we're dealing with the court process right now. It's annoying, but we're appealing. We're doing everything we can to do the business of the American people. These judges are being obstructionist, but they're saying they're working within the courts right now. So kind of a signal from the White House, from the Department of Justice at the moment, that they're not pushing towards impeachment of these judges, though they deserve it.
Well.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks so much. I also have an on-topic and an off-topic.
Sure.
First of all, can you just briefly walk us through what the legal claims are you're making in this lawsuit?
Yeah, absolutely. So the green light laws are that this is what the green light law says. It's a green light to illegal immigration, which says they can comply. That law is unconstitutional. They can't do that. And what they've done is they have a tip-off provision that requires New York's DMV commissioner to promptly inform any illegal alien when a federal immigration agency has requested their information. So think about the men and women in law enforcement behind me. That's basically, that's not basic. It's tipping off an illegal alien, and it's unconstitutional. And that's why we filed this lawsuit. And that's why we charge Mark Schroeder, too, because he runs DMV.
Yeah, they're harboring illegals. They're aiding and abetting foreign nationals being here illegally.
Second question.
Yeah, my off-topic question. I wanted to ask about Mayor Mayor Eric
Yes.
Adams' case. As of at least a few moments ago, SDNY still has not dropped that case. Have you or other DOJ leadership spoken to the acting U.S. attorney in SDNY since the memo was sent earlier this week? And what will you do if she refuses to drop the case?
I have not spoken to her. I know our acting DAG, Emil Bove, has spoken to her, and Chad Mizell may have spoken to her, but that case should be dropped. It was done at the directive of Emil, so that case should be dropped. I did not know that it had not been dropped yet, but I will certainly look into that.
All right, some question of what's going on there. You just heard them prompt. They're calling on Reagan Reese of the Daily Caller. That's my reporter over at the Daily Caller, Reagan Reese. We'll play that Q&A in just a moment. Attorney General Pam Bondi stepping up to the microphone at the Department of Justice today, just a short while ago, announcing lawsuits against the state of New York, charges for harboring, advancing illegal aliens at the expense of the American public. So that's good to see. Also taking a question from the Daily Caller's Reagan Reese. Here's what that sounded like.
Reagan, Daily Caller.
Hi, thank you.
How are you?
Tom Homan suggested this week that someone from within the FBI may be leaking information about the ICE raids and that such could be putting officers' lives at risk. Has the DOJ gotten any closer to determining if these leaks are coming from within the FBI? And what will the consequences be if they can identify the leakers from the FBI?
Excuse me. Well, first, I can't talk about anything that is ongoing, and that is ongoing. And it's really for the similar reasons of what I said earlier. The great men and women in law enforcement standing behind me today, they must be protected. And anytime anyone leaks or tips off anything regarding a pending investigation, that jeopardizes lives. You're telling a bad guy what's about to happen. It could jeopardize the lives of all the men and women in law enforcement. We will not stand for it. We will find you. We're going to investigate it, no matter what agency it came from. We don't know for certain. We have an open investigation, so I can't talk about it in detail, but we will do everything in our power to hold you accountable, and it is a crime, and you will be prosecuted when we find you.
I got time for one more. Alana Austin, Newsmax.
Hi, Madam
Hi, Alana.
Attorney General. Thank you so much for your time. I was also interested in hearing specifically what the interactions have been like with Mayor Adams. And I know he has a little bit of a different tone than some of the other Democrats out of the Empire State. And then also Denver Mayor Mike Johnston, because before the President Trump went back into office, he had issued some...
All right, we'll table that. There's more there. Obviously, the Justice Department looking to drop those charges against Eric Adams. Remember, it was Eric Adams who spoke out against illegal immigration and the effects on New York City. And the Democrats had been telling him, warning him, you better be a good Democrat. And when he wasn't a sufficiently good Democrat, they leveled these charges against him because they said he took unauthorized seat upgrades on Turkish Airlines. Those were the charges? Yeah, the Trump Justice Department dropping those. Fascinating to watch. This entire administration, fascinating to watch. Up next, the great one, Mark Levin, here on WMAL.